I'm too old for you, Ji-hoon, she whispered, her voice trembling as she backed away from him in the dimly lit hallway of the Seoul penthouse. I've lived a lifetime before you even learned how to hold a gun. Find someone your own age. Someone who doesn't have a past that haunts her. Ji-hoon didn't move, but the air in the room seemed to freeze. He was the youngest leader the Black Dragon Syndicate had ever seen. A man whose name was spoken in hushed, terrified tones from the docks of Incheon to the boardrooms of Gangnam. He was 28, lethal, and possessed a coldness that usually kept the world at bay. But as he looked at Min-ah, the woman who had been his sanctuary when he was nothing but a street orphan, the ice in his eyes shattered. He stepped forward, his hand reaching out to capture her chin, forcing her to look into the darkness of his gaze. Age is a number for people who have the luxury of time, Min-ah, he rasped, his voice vibrating with a dangerous, possessive heat. In my world, we measure life in breaths and bullets. You think 10 years makes a difference. You think the silver in your hair or the wisdom in your eyes scares me. You are the only person who saw me when I was invisible. You are the only one I want to spend the rest of my life with. And in this city, what Ji-hoon wants, Ji-hoon takes, even if I have to burn everything down to keep you. The city of Seoul never truly slept. It merely changed its mask. Under the neon glow of the skyscrapers, a different world thrived, one of blood, loyalty, and ironclad shadows. Min-ah had lived on the periphery of that world for years. At 38, she was a woman of quiet elegance and sharp intelligence, running a small, high-end gallery that catered to the city's elite. To the public, she was a success story. To herself, she was a woman hiding from a history she could never quite outrun. She remembered Ji-hoon when he was just a boy with bruised knuckles and a defiant glare. She had found him huddled behind her gallery 10 years ago, bleeding from a knife wound he refused to explain. She hadn't called the police. She had brought him inside, cleaned his wounds, and fed him. For 3 years, she had been his only friend, his only teacher, and eventually, the only person he ever truly loved. But then, he had vanished into the bowels of the underworld, emerging years later as the Ice Prince of the Black Dragon Syndicate. Now he was back, not as the boy who needed her help, but as the man who demanded her heart. The gallery was quiet that evening, the scent of expensive oil paints and aged paper lingering in the air. Min-ah was closing up, her mind heavy with the news of the recent gang wars shaking the northern districts. She felt the shift in the atmosphere before she heard him. The subtle scent of expensive cologne and cold rain signaled his arrival. "You're late, Ji-hoon," she said without turning around, her hands steady as she tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "The council meetings ran long," he replied, his voice coming from right behind her. "Old men like to hear themselves talk before they realize they've already lost their power." She turned, her breath hitching. He was dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than her gallery's monthly rent. His dark hair was styled back, revealing the sharp, predatory lines of his face. He looked every bit the monster the newspapers feared, yet when his eyes met hers, there was a softness that only she was allowed to see. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice a fragile shield. "The rumors are already starting. People are asking why the head of the syndicate spends every Tuesday night in a dusty gallery." Ji-hoon stepped closer, invading her personal space until she could feel the heat radiating from him. "Let them ask. Let them wonder. I've spent 5 years building a throne just so I could have a place for you to sit beside me. You think I care about the whispers of cowards. It's not just whispers, and you know it," Min-ah countered, her eyes flashing with a mix of fear and longing. "I'm 38, Ji-hoon. I have a life that is simple and safe. You are 28 and living on the edge of a blade. Your rivals will see me as a target. Your family will see me as an embarrassment. I am a woman of the past. You are the man of the future." Ji-hoon's hand moved with a speed that startled her, his fingers lacing through hers. His grip was firm, unyielding. "You are my future, Min-ah. You were the only one who didn't look at me like I was a stray dog. You gave me a name when I had none. You think I'm going to let you walk away because of a few years on a calendar? If you think I'm too young to understand what forever means, then you don't know the man I've become." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed, a sharp, insistent sound that shattered the intimacy of the moment. He didn't look at it, but his jaw tightened. The world was calling him back. "I have to go," he murmured, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "But I'm not finished with this. I'm never finished with you." As he walked toward the door, he stopped and looked back over his shoulder. "By the way, the gallery is under 24-hour protection now. My men are stationed at both ends of the street. If anyone even looks at you the wrong way, they won't live to regret it." Min-ah watched him leave, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She knew that loving him was a death sentence, but as she looked at the space where he had stood, she realized she had never felt more alive. "Wait, before we dive deeper into the dangerous secrets Min-ah is hiding, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss how Ji-hoon handles the betrayal coming in the next chapter. If you think age doesn't matter in love, drop a "forever" in the comments below. After he left, the gallery felt colder, the shadows in the corners seeming to stretch toward her. Min-ah retreated to her small office in the back, leaning against the door as she tried to catch her breath. She wasn't just worried about the age gap. She was worried about the ghost she had been running from since before Ji-hoon was born. In her desk drawer, hidden beneath a stack of invoices, was a faded photograph. It showed a younger Min-ah, barely 20, standing next to a man with a tattoo of a phoenix on his neck, the symbol of the Phoenix Guard, the Black Dragon's greatest rivals. That man had been her husband, a high-ranking lieutenant who had been killed in a purge she was lucky to survive. If Ji-hoon found out that the woman he worshipped was the widow of his enemy, the Ice Prince wouldn't just be cold. He would be lethal. The next few days were a blur of tension. Min-ah felt the eyes of Ji-hoon's men on her whenever she stepped outside. They were discreet, shadows in black sedans, men in casual clothes lingering at coffee shops, but she knew they were there. It was a golden cage, and she was beginning to feel the bars closing in. On Friday, a bouquet of black roses arrived at the gallery. There was no card, only a small silver pin in the shape of a dragon scale. It was a sign of possession, a public declaration in the underworld language that she belonged to the Black Dragon. Later that evening, a woman entered the gallery. She was older, perhaps in her 60s, dressed in a traditional hanbok that screamed old money and older power. She moved with a grace that commanded the room. Min-ah recognized her instantly. It was Madame Kong, the matriarch of the syndicate and Ji-hoon's grandmother. "So," the madam said, her voice like shifting gravel as she stopped in front of a modern abstract painting. "This is the woman who has turned my grandson into a fool." Min-ah stood her ground, her chin tilted up. "Madame Kong, I didn't realize the gallery was on your itinerary." "Don't play games with me, girl," the madam snapped, her eyes sharp as needles. "Ji-hoon is a king in the making. He needs a queen who can produce heirs, a woman who brings an alliance, not a commoner who remembers him when he was a beggar. You are a distraction. A beautiful one, I admit, but a distraction nonetheless." "I have told him the same," Min-ah said quietly. "I have tried to push him away." "Then try harder." Madame Kong leaned in, the scent of sandalwood and old silk surrounding them. "Because if you don't, I will. And my methods are far less gentle than a conversation." As the madam turned to leave, she stopped and looked at the painting again. "It's a chaotic piece. Much like your future if you stay. Remember, Min-ah, the higher a dragon flies, the further it has to fall. Don't be the weight that pulls him down. The chill left behind by Madame Kong lingered in the gallery long after the scent of her sandalwood perfume had vanished. Minna stood frozen, the matriarch's warning ringing in her ears. She knew the weight of a dragon all too well. She had felt it crush her once before, leaving her a widow at 24. Now, at 38, she was being asked to choose between her heart and the survival of the man who held it. That night, the rain returned to Seoul, a relentless gray curtain that blurred the neon lights of the city. Minna tried to focus on her inventory, but every shadow outside the gallery window looked like a threat. At 10 p.m., a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb. It wasn't Ji-hoon's usual vehicle. The door opened and a man stepped out. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wore a leather jacket, and his neck was scarred, a jagged line that interrupted the fading ink of a phoenix tattoo. Minna's heart stopped. "Minna," the man said, stepping into the light of the gallery entrance. "It's been a long time." "Sang-woo," she breathed, her hands trembling so violently she had to grip the edge of her desk. "You're supposed to be dead. They told me everyone in the Phoenix Guard was purged." "The black dragons are good, but they aren't perfect," Sang-woo sneered, his eyes scanning the gallery with disdain. "I've been waiting in the shadows, watching you play house with the Ice Prince. Does he know? Does Ji-hoon know he's sleeping with the widow of his enemy?" "He has nothing to do with this," Minna hissed, her survival instincts kicking in. "Leave him out of it. He has everything to do with it. He killed my brothers. He took my territory. And now I'm going to take the only thing he values." Sang-woo stepped closer, the smell of cheap cigarettes and malice rolling off him. "You're going to help me, Minna. You're going to give me the codes to his private elevator in the Gangnam Tower. If you don't, I'll send that old photograph to his desk tonight. Let's see how much he wants to spend his life with you when he finds out you were the queen of the Phoenix." Minna felt the world tilting. If she betrayed Ji-hoon, he would die. If she didn't, his world would be shattered by her lies, and he would likely kill her himself. Stay tuned. The web of lies is tightening around Minna, and the Ice Prince is about to find out that his sanctuary is built on a foundation of betrayal. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you want to see Ji-hoon's reaction to the truth. Comment, Nuna, if you think Minna should come clean before it's too late. The next morning, Ji-hoon arrived at the gallery earlier than usual. He looked tired, the dark circles under his eyes a testament to the war he was fighting on the streets. But when he saw Minna, he pulled her into his arms with a desperation that broke her heart. "What is it?" he asked, his forehead resting against hers. "You're cold. You haven't slept." "Ji-hoon," she started, the confession burning in her throat. "There are things you don't know. My past. It's not just about age. It's darker than you think." He silenced her with a kiss, soft at first, then deepening into a possessive claim. When he pulled back, his eyes were fierce. "I don't care about your past, Minna. I care about my future. And my future is you. I know my grandmother came to see you. I know what she said. I've already dealt with her. She won't trouble you again." "You dealt with your own grandmother?" Minna whispered, horrified. "I told her that if she touches you, I will step down and let the syndicate crumble. She knows I'm not joking." He cupped her face in his hands. "You think you're too old for me? You're the only thing that keeps me young. Without you, I'm just a dead man walking." Minna wanted to scream the truth, but the image of Sang-woo's scarred neck flashed in her mind. She realized then that she couldn't just tell him. She had to protect him. She spent the afternoon in a daze. At 3 p.m., a courier delivered a plain envelope. Inside was a single burner phone and a note. "Tonight, 11 p.m. The Han River Bridge." Bring the codes or the photo goes viral. Minna knew she couldn't give him the codes. But she also knew she couldn't let Ji-hoon walk into a trap. She made a choice, one that a woman her age knew was a gamble with her life. She would meet Sang-woo, and she would end this herself. She dressed in black, her heart a drum in her chest. She left a note for Ji-hoon on her desk, hidden under a paperweight. I'm sorry for the lies. I'm doing this to save the boy I found 10 years ago. The Han River was a dark, churning ribbon beneath the bridge. The wind was biting, tearing at her hair as she stood by the railing. Sang-woo was already there, leaning against his car. Did you bring them? He asked. I brought something better, Minna said, her voice steady despite the terror. She pulled out a small flash drive. This is the financial ledger for the Phoenix Guard's old offshore accounts. I kept it as insurance. It's worth 10 times what you'd get from killing Ji-hoon. Take it and disappear. If you ever show your face in Seoul again, I'll give the decryption key to the police. Sang-woo laughed, a dry, hacking sound. You always were smarter than my brother. But you're forgetting one thing, Minna. Before he could finish, a red laser dot appeared on his forehead. From the shadows at the end of the bridge, a figure emerged. Ji-hoon walked with the slow, deliberate pace of a god of death. He wasn't alone. A dozen men in tactical gear flanked him, their weapons leveled at Sang-woo. Ji-hoon didn't look at the traitor. He looked only at Minna. His face was a mask of cold fury, but his eyes were bleeding with hurt. Ji-hoon, stop! Minna cried, running toward him. I was trying to protect you. By meeting a dead man in the middle of the night? Ji-hoon's voice was a low growl. He looked at Sang-woo. Did you really think I didn't know who she was? Did you think I hadn't tracked every breath she took for the last 10 years? Minna stopped dead. You knew. Ji-hoon finally turned his gaze to her. I knew who your husband was before I even let you clean my first wound. I didn't care then and I don't care now. You were a victim of that life just like I was. But you lied to me, Minna. Not about your age. About your trust. He signaled to his men. In a blur of motion, Sang-woo was tackled and disarmed. Ji-hoon walked up to him, his foot pressing down on the man's throat. You used her name to threaten me, Ji-hoon said, his voice devoid of emotion. For that, there is no quick death. He turned back to Minna, his eyes searching hers. Go back to the gallery. My men will take you. We will talk when the sun comes up. Ji-hoon, please. Go, he barked. Minna was led away, the sound of the Han River swallowing her sobs. She had tried to save him, but in doing so, she had revealed the one thing that could truly destroy them. The fact that even after all these years, she still didn't believe he was man enough to handle her truth. The drive back to the gallery was a hollow, suffocating ordeal. Minna sat in the back of the black sedan, the silence of the guards as sharp as the shards of her broken trust. Ji-hoon hadn't followed. He had stayed on the bridge with his monsters and his rage, a king presiding over an execution. When she stepped into her apartment above the gallery, the air felt thin. She paced the floor, her mind replaying the look in Ji-hoon's eyes. It wasn't just anger. It was the look of a man who realized the person he worshipped was just as capable of betrayal as the enemies he killed. Hours bled into the early morning. The sun began to creep over the Seoul skyline, a cold, pale light that offered no warmth. At 6 a.m., the heavy door downstairs clicked open. She heard his footsteps, slow, heavy, and purposeful. Ji-hoon entered the room without knocking. He had changed his clothes, but the scent of gunpowder and the river clung to him. He didn't look at her. Instead, he walked to the window, staring out at the city he ruled. I spent 5 years wondering why you wouldn't let me in, he said, his voice so quiet it was almost a whisper. I thought it was the age. I thought it was the money. I thought I was too young to understand the complexity of a woman like you. Ji-hoon, please. But it wasn't any of that, he snapped, turning to face her. His eyes were bloodshot. It was because you never stopped seeing me as that bleeding boy behind your gallery. You think you're too old for me? No, Minna. You're just too stuck in a past that doesn't exist anymore. You thought I couldn't handle the fact that you were married to a phoenix? I am the one who burned the phoenix to the ground. I knew every detail of your life before I even stepped back into this gallery. Minna gasped, the air leaving her lungs. You knew. And you still came back? I came back because you were the only real thing in my life. I didn't care who you belonged to before. I only cared who you belonged to now. He stepped toward her, his presence overwhelming the small room. But you didn't trust me to protect you. You went to a traitor. You risked your life because you didn't think I was strong enough to keep you safe from a ghost. I was afraid for you, she cried, tears finally breaking. I've lost everything once before to this world. I couldn't lose you too. You already have, he said, the words landing like a physical blow. Do not miss what happens next. If you are enjoying this intense journey of secrets and mafia obsession, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. We are reaching the climax of part 1. Will the Ice Prince walk away, or will his obsession consume them both? Type "protect" in the comments if you think Ji-hoon is right to be angry. The silence that followed was deafening. Minna watched as the man she loved, the man she had practically raised, turned into a stranger. The gap between them wasn't 10 years. It was a vast, dark canyon of blood and secrets. What happens now? She asked, her voice trembling. Now, Ji-hoon said, his expression hardening back into the Ice Prince mask. You are going to stay in this apartment. You will not leave. You will not open the gallery. My men are at the door. You wanted a simple life? I'm giving you one. But you are no longer a part of my world. You are just a guest in it. You're imprisoning me. I'm keeping you alive, he corrected. Sang-woo isn't the only ghost coming for the Phoenix Widow. My rivals found out about the meeting on the bridge. By noon today, half of Seoul will know that the head of the Black Dragons has a weakness for his enemy's wife. He walked toward the door, stopping only when his hand was on the handle. You told me you were too old for me, Minna. Maybe you were right. You're too old to believe in a future that isn't stained by the past. And I'm too young to realize that some things can't be fixed with a bullet. He left without another word. The lock clicked from the outside. Minna sank to the floor, the weight of her reality finally crushing her. She was a prisoner of the man who loved her. She looked at the faded photograph of her first husband, then at the black roses Ji-hoon had sent. She realized then that she had lived 2 lives, and both had ended in a cage. But as the afternoon sun hit its peak, a frantic pounding started on her door. It wasn't the rhythmic knock of Ji-hoon's guards. It was a panicked, desperate sound. Minna, open up. It's Madame Kang's assistant. A voice muffled through the wood. There's been a hit. The Syndicate Council. They've moved against Ji-hoon. They're calling him a traitor for protecting a Phoenix spy. Minna scrambled to the door, pulling at the handle, but it held firm. Let me out. I have to get to him. I can't. The guards are dead in the hallway. They're coming for you next to make sure he has nothing left to fight for. The sound of a gunshot echoed from the stairwell. Minna's blood ran cold. The war wasn't coming. It was here. And she was trapped in the very cage Ji-hoon had built to keep her safe. She looked around her office, her eyes landing on the fire axe in the emergency cabinet. At 38, she had learned that if no one was coming to save you, You had to save yourself. She grabbed the axe, the weight of it familiar and heavy. She wasn't just a widow. She wasn't just an older woman. She was a woman who had survived the purge of the Phoenix Guard, and she wasn't about to let the black dragons take the only thing she had left. The wood of the door splintered under the first strike of the axe. Minna didn't feel the sting in her palms or the sweat pooling at her hairline. She only felt the cold, sharp clarity of a woman who had already died once and refused to do it again. With a final, agonizing heave, the frame gave way. She stumbled into the hallway, stepping over the crumpled forms of the guards Ji-hoon had trusted to keep her caged. The stairwell was a cacophony of distant shouts and the rhythmic pop-pop-pop of suppressed gunfire. The syndicate wasn't just coming for Ji-hoon. They were purging anyone associated with his weakness. Minna didn't head for the street. She knew the back alleys of this neighborhood better than any tactical team. She slipped through the gallery's loading dock, the smell of turpentine and expensive dust the last thing she inhaled before plunging into the humid Seoul night. She needed to get to the Gangnam Tower. She needed to tell him that the trap wasn't just about her past. It was about the council using her as the spark to ignite a coup. In the penthouse of the Black Dragon headquarters, Ji-hoon stood amidst a sea of shattered glass. The Ice Prince was gone. In his place was a whirlwind of calculated violence. He had already taken a bullet to the shoulder. The charcoal fabric of his suit soaked a deep, horrific crimson, but he didn't falter. He moved through the office like a shadow, his beretta barking as he methodically eliminated the men who had been his brothers only hours before. "Where is she?" Ji-hoon roared, slamming a traitorous lieutenant against the marble wall. "If a single hair on her head is touched, I will make sure the Han River is choked with your lineage." The lieutenant coughed blood, a twisted smile on his lips. "She's already dead, Ji-hoon. Your grandmother made sure of it. You sacrificed an empire for a woman who was already a ghost." Ji-hoon's world tilted. The rage that had fueled him turned into a hollow, freezing void. He let the man drop, his gun hand trembling for the first time in his life. Was this the price? Was 10 years of obsession worth the ash he was now standing in? Suddenly, the private elevator chimed. Ji-hoon spun, leveling his weapon, his finger tightening on the trigger. The doors slid open to reveal Minna. She was covered in soot, her black dress torn, clutching a fire axe that was stained with more than just rust. She looked at him. Not at the Mafia Boss, but at the man who was bleeding out in front of her. "Ji-hoon!" she screamed, rushing toward him. "Stay back!" he yelled, even as he collapsed to one knee. "It's a trap. They're using the elevator's override." But she didn't stop. She threw herself in front of him just as the glass windows behind them exploded inward. A sniper's round whistled through the air, grazing the space where Ji-hoon's head had been a second before. He pulled her down behind the heavy mahogany desk, his blood staining her dress. "You came back," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I locked the door. I told you to stay away." "You're a fool, Ji-hoon," she rasped, pulling his head to her chest. "I told you I was too old for you. I'm too old to listen to a boy who thinks he can face the world alone." The thrilling conclusion to Part 1 is here. Ji-hoon and Minna are trapped. The syndicate has turned into a den of vipers, and the secret of the Phoenix Widow is now public. Is this the end for the Ice Prince? Subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the explosive Part 2. If you think Ji-hoon will sacrifice everything for her, smash that like button and comment "sacrifice" below. Outside the office, the heavy thud of combat boots approached. The council's elite guard was closing in. Ji-hoon looked at the woman in his arms, the woman who had been his savior, his teacher, and now his downfall. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black detonator. "Minna," he said, his eyes burning with a terrifying final light. You said you didn't want a past that haunts you. How do you feel about a future that starts with a bang? Ji-hoon, what are you doing? I told you, he whispered, leaning in to kiss her forehead as the doors kicked open. If I have to burn it all down to keep you, I will. He pressed the button,